Welcome back to part two. Now let's go into chapter 7. Verse 6. Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters came upon the earth. Now, when we first met Noah, that was in chapter 5. When we first met Noah, Noah was 500 years old. So we assume, putting two and two together, because it flows that way, that Noah comes into the scene, being this man that finds favor with God. God laments the fact that he's going to destroy the earth, but Noah will play a part in it. He tells Noah what he's to do, how he's to build the ark, the animals he's to get, etc., etc., etc. It takes him 100 years to do that. Because then, when we come here to verse 6 of chapter 7, he was 600 years old when the flood waters started. So it took him 100 years, him and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. It took them 100 years to go out and get the stuff they needed to construct the ark. And then you have the animals come into the ark and get ready for the flood. All right. Some of this stuff I'm going to skip over about the animals and all the unclean, the clean, because I think just by way of a summary statement later on, we'll pick up some of this. Verse 7 of chapter 7. And Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him went into the ark to escape the waters of the flood. So they go in there, verse 11. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened, and rain fell upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. So basically what's happening here, everything is opening up. The heavens are opening up, the rain is coming down, the bowels of the earth are opening up, water is gushing up. So for 40 days and 40 nights, the rains came. But remember, in the ark was Noah, his wife, his 3 sons and their wives, and animals of every kind, male and female. Verse 15. They went into the ark with Noah, 2 and 2 of all flesh, in which there was the breath of life, and they that entered, male and female of all flesh, went in as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in. It's important. God shuts the door of the ark. God leaves nothing to chance. To go back to that New Testament thought a moment ago, in the fullness of time, when everything was just right according to God's plan, God shut the door. It's important, because when we get on the other side of the flood, who's going to open that door? But right now, God shuts the door. Any comments, questions? Verse 7. Oh, yes, ma'am. They have different names. I don't know what that would be, but basically in their calendar year, whatever that second month was in that calendar at that time, So, okay, well, okay. February 17th?
Yeah.
Okay. But you have to remember, as an aside, do you know what the first month in the Roman calendar was? Until about 40 BC? March. March was the first month. And then Julius Caesar came along, and then he added 2 months and mixed things up, yes. So I'm not sure what those, they're somewhere, yeah. Let's look at verse 17. The flood continued 40 days upon the earth, and the waters increased and bore up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. The waters prevailed and increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark floated on the face of the waters. And the waters prevailed so mightily upon the earth that all the high mountains under the whole heaven were covered. The waters prevailed above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits deep. And all flesh died that moved upon the earth, birds, cattle, beasts, all swarming creatures that swarm upon the earth, and every man, everything on the dry land, in whose nostrils was the breath of life, died. Well, we're going to remember that comment because we're going to come back to that. That's a very important comment. Verse 24. And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days.
How does that fit with the 40 days and 40 nights?
Well, it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. And then after 40 days and 40 nights, the rain stopped. But the water prevailed. It did not recede yet, but it prevailed for 150 days. So try to do this in your mind. So we got 40 days, and 190. It's about a half. So far, 6 months. Okay. So far, 6 months. Let's just. I don't want to go into 8 quite yet because there's a couple other little things I want to mention. Let's go back to where was that verse? Verse 20. The waters prevailed above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits deep. Now, when I taught Old Testament at Lutheran High School in Queens, we came to this. I did remember some numbers. 15 cubits is approximately 20 feet. So, mind you, what's the highest mountain on? Is it Everest? That's the highest mountain on the earth. So if you get that height, the highest point on the earth, according to the scriptures, the waters were even 20 feet above that.
How big for you?
So the purpose was that nobody could breathe. You know, how long can you tread water? You know, there comes a time when you're just going to give, you know, everything was destroyed by that water. 20 feet deep above the tallest mountain peak at that time. So there was no way for anyone to survive. And even if you want to be a cynic and say, well, perhaps, this is God's story. And if he decided that this is what he's going to do, I'm sure it would have happened. Now, before we now look at the backside of the flood, let's talk about just a couple of topics that come out of here. What's one thing about the flood story that should jump out at you as a Christian right away? I'll put this within confirmation terms. What's the one predominant element for the flood that makes it the flood? The water. Very important. And fast forward to 2019. What is that one sacrament that the water is the star witness? Baptism. The water is important. So begin now to draw some parallels in your mind between the waters of the flood and the waters of baptism. Obviously, the quantity is different, but the purpose is the same.
I see it as opposites. The flood destroyed, and the baptism, water of baptism gives life.
Okay, that's a very good observation. Water has that power. I'll never forget one time, many years ago, I was at some beach in Newport, Rhode Island, and a family came into the water, and the water was a little rough that day. And the mother said to her teenage sons, now you be careful, Because while we need water to live and everything, it can also be a deadly force. And yet you're right. However, let's go beyond. Let's go beyond. There is that ark floating on that water. That's why the church at times, the church has been called an ark. Because we are sailing from this world of sin and evil and wickedness to a better place. Now, that's just a little. What else? When we're thinking about the water, it's destructive. We think a little bit about the ark. It has saved Noah, his family, and all the animals. Because what is God's plan now? You've read the rest of the flood story. So we're going to just fast forward for a moment. What is God's plan to do with those people and animals in the ark? Start over again. That's the whole purpose. But you see, he is going to use a remnant of the old world to start over. Yes, we have to say that because God is all-powerful, omnipotent, he could have wiped everything out and said, let me do this again. Take two. But he, and what's that one word we like to use? He, out of his mercy, spared Noah and his family and those animals so that they now would be the progenitors to be fruitful and multiply and now subdue the new world after the flood. Any observations there? Any other, we've not pushed the envelope far enough, but anything else?
Because of God's mercy, he continues through these pages, always trying to bring people back to him.
Yes, absolutely. God's mercy never ends. Yes, one day it will. And soon when we get to the month of November, we'll be hearing those gospel readings where, let's say, the 10 virgins. 5 of them go out and they do whatever they do, but then the time comes, the bridegroom comes, the door is shut, they come back on the door, and the voice from within says, go away, I don't even know you. Yes, there will come a time when God's mercy comes to an end. But, that's right, that's very important, very important. I just had you what you said. Because in that parable, it's the bridegroom who really is the typical, prototypical example of Jesus, shuts the door. The time for mercy is over. Just as God shut the door on the ark. Because all those people who rejected God, who laughed at Noah and his sons as they built the ark, the door was shut. And they were on the outside. They were on the outside and they were doomed. One other thing that I alluded to when we were talking about the fall into sin with Genesis chapter 3 was, you see, when Adam and Eve fell into sin, all creation got out of harmony. And because of man's wickedness, even the animals on the earth had to pay the price because of man's wickedness. There was nothing that was spared destruction except those that were in the ark with Noah. Now, there are some things that obviously the Bible does not, remember we talked about last week, we don't have to know everything, but there are some things that Pastor Weber says, well, I'd like to know. So, fast forward, just so we get the full picture. We're already 190 days in, and when finally, in the end, when they come out of the ark, I think it'll be 13 months all total when they finally leave the ark. Okay, so let's just take that for a moment. We're going to read that later. 13 months they're in the ark, from the time the door is shut to when it's opened. How could they have enough food to feed all those animals and the people? How would they store? Now, and one more question that we don't like to think about. What about all that poop?
From the animals as well.
Yes. This is what I mean. They can't do that. The door's shut. They can't do that. There's only one window. Only one window. So, you see, but these are things, even though we chuckle, these are things that we like to kick around and speculate. What about the food? What about the poop? How did God handle that? Any ideas? And there's going to be no right or wrong because we don't know.
What is time?
What is time? Yes. Well, how many of you are dog owners? Anybody a dog owner? Previously. All right. Well, I've been a dog owner really ever since I was 4 or 5 years old. Not the same dog, though. No, I didn't stop them. However, I've noticed a couple of things in all those years. When you are away, and I'll speak of my current dogs now, when we are away, and when we put them in the bathroom upstairs, we'll put on some water, we'll put a little food. They don't touch them. They don't touch them. Until we come home and then no. But they don't touch them. And that got me to thinking about Noah. Is it not possible that God could have allowed the animals to go into some kind of hibernative state once he got them on the ark? Because then once you're on the ark in this hibernative state, like the bear in hibernation, you won't need to eat as much, if anything. And if you're not putting stuff in, you're not producing stuff to go out. So it is possible that those who went into the ark, God put into a hibernative state so that little issue of life could be suspended, eating and wasting. Now, well, obviously, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. I'm only looking at the animals because of the volume. However, if you've got 8 human beings, that's a lot, but, remember, they're vegetarians. So,
Maybe they have a
So ultimately, yes, it could have also been, it also could have been with Noah's family, because they didn't need to steer the ark. It floated. God was directing it. So there was no one manning the helm, because there was no helm to man. So you see, sometimes this is how theologians work through things. They read these texts, they look at the original, they do this, they do that, and then some of these questions kind of come to mind. What about? And I think every now and then, when you have to have time to do this, but every now and then it's kind of fun to play with the text to see, not that we have even the concrete answers, because again, it doesn't affect our salvation, but the point is it's just kind of unique every now and then to say, hey, how could this have been? How could this have been? Anyone, got any other comments before we move on?
To me, the main thing was that God noticed that Noah was good
Yes.
as compared to everybody else.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's a promising thing.
Coming out of the story is that Noah was good, and God, I would say God's mercy. That God recognized that,
That he was
And-
good and he was merciful to him.
and as a part of God's plan, he was going to spare him and his family. ark
and use them for his purpose.
and use him for his purposes. You know, and every now and then when something like that happens, I mean, now we're kind of like another little tangent off. Every now and then when we have something happen in our life that maybe is out of the ordinary, we have to ask ourselves, what does it mean? What does God mean by it? How will God use that? How will God use me with this experience to either better understand Him or myself? How will He use me to help someone else? So you see, there are all kinds of possibilities out there that whenever we have a cross to bear or a joy to share, somehow, how will God use me? Because isn't that a part of our life as Christians? Not just to be isolated and insulated, but aren't we to share our lives, share the love of God in Jesus, as we've talked about pretty extensively last week? You know, you will know them by their fruits, Jesus tells us. Very interesting, yes. Let's go to chapter 8 then. Oh, yes, let's